The gathering in Berlin had the air of the end of an era, not only because it was Barack Obama's last, but there's also the uncertainty around the others. Ahead is an especially vote-heavy year with potentially heavy political casualties. In the wake of Trump's election, Obama left Europe with a warning.
We are going to have to guard against a rise in a crude sort of nationalism or ethnic identity or tribalism that is built around an us and a them.
Even if you've never cared for politics, this is where politics gets interesting. Those rare times in history when the shift is so abrupt.
Bonjour pour les primaires, Alain Juppé.
Even the first round of the first ever French primaries takes on an urgency one might expect only in the national election.
Bonjour.
Florian Jouan has been out at dawn all week to deliver that message.
La victoire de Donald Trump, franchement, je m'y attendais pas. Pour moi, c'était impossible, inconcevable. Si on se motive pour la primaire, c'est vraiment pour avoir un champion et pour que l'extrême droite puisse absolument pas avoir l'espoir de remporter les prochaines élections présidentielles.
The Made in France Expo is a favored photo op for campaigning politicians. Though a maverick, Marine Le Pen is no different. Trump's win has put her far-right Front National front and center and improves the chances, she says, that she too can win. Polls, if you still believe them, see her at least making it to the final runoff.
Je pense que c'est l'émergence d'un monde nouveau. On va voir les grands équilibres mondiaux bouger sur leur axe. Et ceci m'apparaît extrêmement positif.
Where will populism stop?
Political scientist Dominique Moisy says Trump's win changes the electoral debate.
It's a wake-up call. All those who were saying, well, it won't happen, it's not dangerous, never here, are suddenly realizing that it can happen. But at the same time, those who are for the Front National, they feel legitimized, vindicated.
Front National, a nationalist, anti-immigration, anti-Euro party. Its old home speaks to its humble beginnings, of its populist, anti-establishment streak. With growing support, it's moving up in the world. A new home just last week. A far-right party that also espouses liberal values like secularism and opposing discrimination based on sexual orientation. Of course, they've been here all along and all over Europe. What's different now is that they have their finger on the sharpest concerns among people. Those include immigration, the economy, and the growing inequity. So no longer are they fringe parties that could be ignored by the usual establishment parties. They, in fact, cast themselves as the last defenders of Western values. Florence, earlier this month. Yes, the darling of summer tourists, caught up in a bitter fall debate. Proposed reforms to Italy's political system look set for a defeat in a referendum in less than 2 weeks. Thanks partly to populist insurgents riding the growing anger over corruption, unemployment, and immigration.
Viva il Partito Democratico! Viva l'Italia!
The Prime Minister's job is on the line, and potentially so is Italy's place in the Eurozone. On the same day, a rerun of Austria's presidential vote reopens the door to the Freedom Party candidate, Norbert Hofer, also anti-immigrant and anti-EU.
Dort, wo sich die Eliten von den Wählern entfernen, werden die Eliten abgewählt.
Words echoed in the Netherlands and Germany, where the free entry of 1 million asylum seekers last year fueled support for the extreme right Alternative for Deutschland. It's won seats in 10 state parliaments, including Berlin. All part of a global wave of nationalism, now galvanized by Trump's victory and the Brexit referendum before that in the UK.
We've got our country back.
The first vote, where resentment of the establishment unexpectedly changed everything. Front National, also helped by the anti-Muslim mood after last year's ISIS attacks on Paris and the migration crisis. Le Pen has also borrowed from mainstream politics to broaden her base, trying to keep a distance from the anti-Semitism and homophobia associated with her father's party.
Is it working? Do you feel like that transformation is working?
Longtime party official Valéran de Saint-Just says yes.
C'est pas gommer son image, c'est plutôt ça, c'est quitter des défauts, parce que tout le monde, c'est très difficile, on a une vie, on a une histoire, nous, politique, intellectuelle, psychologique, comme tout mouvement humain, comme tout être humain et comme tout mouvement humain. Bon, on a une histoire très importante, mais il faut abandonner ses défauts et coller au terrain. C'est ce qu'elle fait exactement, et c'est pour cela, je pense, qu'elle va vraiment remporter un très grand succès.
At the Made in France Expo, however, it was hard to find supporters of a Le Pen presidency.
Oh, no comment. Mais j'espère que c'est hors de question.
And some here felt they needed to counter Le Pen's anti-immigrant views on whom and what is considered truly French.
We need to tell this woman that we can be different, we can be black, we can stay in France, have created a nice brand, an innovation also, and not be white.
You have to fight to defend your values.
At the Libération newspaper, they saw Trump's triumph coming. And the disapproval showed, quickly followed by apprehension. Because Le Pen is undoubtedly Europe's most potent populist, yet still quite conventional, says Laurent Geoffrin, the paper's editor-in-chief.
If Le Pen were to win, what kind of cover can we expect?
Resistance would be the only thing to do. The platform they support is very frightening for civil liberties and for the fate of the minorities.
So what does the fight look like for Libération?
For a paper, it's a fight on ideas. Besides the fact that we try to inform people and to be as honest as possible, we stand for ideas.
It is a battle of ideas, and one that Germany's Angela Merkel has joined, simply by deciding to run again. Politics, she says, is about balancing interests on the basis of values.
Demokratie, Freiheit, Respekt vor dem Recht, Würde jedes einzelnen Menschen, unabhängig von Herkunft, Hautfarbe, Religion, Geschlecht, sexueller Orientierung oder politischer Einstellung. Das leitet mich, dafür setze ich mich wieder und wieder ein.
In France, some of the Republican Party contenders responded to the nationalist threat by turning sharply to the right, but not all. This now bigger than one party's internal debate. At stake is the euro, the European Union itself. It's also the status quo. For party member Anne-Laure Augustin, they are dangerous ideas.
Donc je pense que l'élection de Trump a été vraiment, on a vu, une tornade et que donc c'est une occasion pour nous de réaliser, enfin en tout cas pour les électeurs, de réaliser à quel point il faut vraiment se mobiliser.
I think it has changed.
What happens here will help determine the fate of the liberal international order, says Dominique Moisy.
There is a perfume of the 1930s, which is clearly present, and not only in Europe, not only in the United States, but globally in the world. So I think what we are witnessing is a moment of truth for the entire Western world. We have to prove to the democratic world that populism is not irresistible.
The French Republican leadership contenders are now down to two, both former prime ministers. One is Alain Juppé.
Le Front National est pour la France une menace majeure et nous devons nous mobiliser pour lui faire échec.
No matter who gets to do that, a win for Front National is still only possible, but likely not probable. But like in almost every coming vote across Europe, the establishment is facing off with a movement just hitting its stride. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Paris.